At some point in time, you might want to import an existing virtual hard drive from one virtual machine to another virtual machine, and in this video I will show you how to do that. In this instance, I've created a 51 megabyte virtual hard drive in Ubuntu 10.10. What we're going to do today is to take that hard drive and we're going to import it into Mint 12. And it really doesn't matter which way you're going or what version of Linux you're using. You should be able to do this. The only sticking point might be if you created a virtual machine in, for example, VMware 7 or something previous, and you're trying to import it into a later version of VMware, or vice versa. I have checked this, and I do know that from importing from a hardware compatibility Workstation 8 to another virtual machine that is Workstation 8 compatible, then you should be okay. So the first thing we need to do is we need to go up to settings, and we could have done that right here from this setting, and we want to select hard drive. If we look down here, here's an add button. Hard drive is 8 gigabytes, and so we click. Windows 7 wants to know if we want to be allowed to do this. Yes, we do. So we want to add a hard disk, and we have three options. What we want is to use an existing virtual disk, and now we need to browse for it. So as it turns out, let's go back over here. Here's our Mint 12, and here is a Mint 12, and this is the compressed file that contains the two files in it. Notice that it has a VMware virtual disk file. They're both explained that way, but this is really a VMX file that explains all about this file right here, which is the actual physical disk. Notice that this is a flat disk, which means that all of the disk space has been created up front. That is, it's not allowed to expand, so that's important, at least in this example. And so we need to extract these files, and we'll just extract them. We could have extracted them there, but we're just going to extract them right here. And now we have these two files. There's the first file, and there's the second file. Remember, that's the configuration file, and this is the actual hard disk, virtual hard disk. So we can close that, and now we need to browse. This is the configuration file right here, and there's the actual hard disk. So we need to select the configuration file, not the hard disk. We click open and finish. Notice this says we have a new hard disk. The current size 51 megabytes, and so it figured that out all on its own. So notice this says it's pre-allocated, which means that it can't grow. It's just like a physical hard disk, is that you can use the entire thing up to 51 megabytes. Typically when we create a hard drive, we don't create all of it at one time. We create it in 2 gigabyte chunks, and that's why this right here, the main primary hard drive, doesn't say pre-allocated. And so let's start running Mint 12 and see what happens. And we're all booted up. Let's open a terminal, and let's run fdisk. And there's our second device, dev SDB, 53 megabytes. And you notice that it's partitioned with one partition. It's a Linux partition. Let me do one more thing. Let's add a little bit to this. Let's modify our configuration file so that we can mount this automatically when it boots, or just by typing mount space -A. And we do that through the etcfstab file system table file. It's just a text file that indicates how to treat booting options when Linux boots. If we look here, notice that it actually explains what each of these columns means. It's the file system, the mount point, the type of mount, and options. And the dump means whether you should back up this partition or not, and usually that's left at 0. And this says pass, and that really means whether you should run file system check on it and the order in which that should be run, and usually those are left at 0. And so notice that you have a couple of file systems here. You have the proc file system, which is the sudo file system, and you have the swap file. Here, let's look at this example. FD0 is going to be your floppy, and so notice that this is the device name, FD0. This is the mount point. This is the type, whether you want it to auto mount or not. And a couple of options over here that are important are the read-write. Should you be able to read and write to it? And also the user, and that means whether a regular user should be able to mount this device or not. The default is if user is not included in here is no user, which means that only root can mount the device. In this case, we're specifying that any user can mount it. So let's open up a new line below this, and we're going to type dev SDB1, if this is the way this showed up on your system, or SDC1 or whatever, and we're going to create a new mount point for that, and let's put that under media, and we'll just call this 50 megabytes. We want this to auto mount on boot up, read write, user execute 0, 0. So we don't care to back up this file system or the contents thereof, and we don't want the file system to be checked. Okay, so we can save this, get out, and one thing we do need to add is that we need to create media 50 megabytes, the mount point. And so sudo make directory media 50 megabytes. Let's go there, and let's look at the access controls, the permissions. So notice that it's owned by root and root. It's read, write, execute for user root. It's read and execute for group root. And notice that it's for other, it's also read and execute, which means that if you can't mount it and you can't write to it. So what we need to do is we need to change the permissions on that to 7 at minimum, so that keeps root's permissions the same. 6, that keeps the group permissions the same. Let's make that 7, which means that other has read, write, and execute privileges on 50 megabyte directory. Let's go back up, make sure that's correct. Read, write, execute, read, write, and read, write, execute. Whoops, in fact that shouldn't have been 6. Let me go back and redo this. See, sometimes I make a mistake. So that should have been 7 because this was read and execute. So in fact, let's just make the whole thing 777. Let's make it easier. So it's still owned by root, but it's read, write, execute, and read, write, execute. So now when it boots, that dev SDB1, the new hard drive that we imported, should automatically mount on the 50 megabyte directory. But we can also do this, mount -A. Notice over here what happened is that now we have an icon on our desktop that says 52 megabyte file system. Let's type mount, and notice at the bottom that we have dev SDB1 on media 50 megabytes. It is a type ext2 file system, read write. And so this video showed you a couple of things, one of which is how to import an existing virtual hard drive that has pre-allocated space into another virtual machine, and also how to set up your etc fstab file so that you can set the auto mounting on boot up, or just by typing mount -A, which mounts everything that's listed in your fstab, and also how to change the permissions on the mount point so that anybody can write to it. In fact, to show you that that works, let's write something to it. Let's copy this file, really big.txt to media, 50 megabytes, see if that works. And we'll go to media, 50 megabytes, and is it there? Yes, it is, along with a couple of other files. So we see now that any user should be able to write to this file because we did change the access permissions on it.